But viewers, moving on the sidelines of the post-budget customary meet between the RBI and the Finance Ministry, FM Nirmala Sitharaman highlighted her long-standing concern over mis-selling by banks. She stressed that banks must prioritize their core business, which is raising stable CASA deposits, and focus on lending. CASA stands for current account and savings account, and according to her, banks have been neglecting this part of their business and have instead focused on aggressive cross-selling of third-party products. Listen into her comments on the same.
Gradually, with the economy and the types of businesses growing, banks have spread themselves to do many other things, which is all right. I'm not against that. But they have reached a point, not now, a couple of years ago, they had reached a point where they did not have that comfort of the CASA money. And as a result, with the government also tightening on professional handling of the banks, performance, also making sure that the banks understand what the credit requirements are and so on, they had to keep lending. And inclusive of the aberrations which happened without checking on the security, you lent and whatever, they went on the other side far too soon. You didn't mobilize CASA as much as you needed or as much as there is availability.
And with that, now that there is more emphasis on CASA, what does this mean for the common man? Does it change anything significantly? I have with me Radha Raman Agarwal, Managing Director and CEO, joining us from Swom Advisors. Thank you so much, Mr. Agarwal, for joining us on this very important subject. Let me hit the bullseye. How, according to you, will the Finance Minister's warning on mis-selling combined with RBI's new guidelines actually protect ordinary customers like me when banks push insurance or mutual funds alongside loans?
So thanks, Malika, having me on the show. So let me tell you, in fact, what the Finance Minister and RBI is basically trying to point out is more in terms of bundling and then unbundling of loans with the insurance products. So I think one of the key aspects and which you observed while even taking loans and all that was that there was a product being applied along with more from a point of view of giving insurance along with the loans. I think that decoupling will happen, and over a period of time, I think RBI has been clear that banks are supposed to get into more of lending business and less in terms of selling, and primarily more in terms of mis-selling. So I think the more important thing will happen is that lending will get simplified without any catch. So effectively, you don't have to bundle things, that you don't have to buy an insurance along with a loan product. That too gets pushed, and that too, in fact, when the customer does not require it, you will find a lot of times the customer is already having insurance and he's been sold the product considerably. So effectively, what will happen with this is the debundling will happen, and in fact, the customers will be at win. And primarily, in fact, they have gone ahead and made it more of a criminal offense. So in fact, it's not just about being a directive, but more in terms of making sure that does not happen. So effectively, the more important thing is that decoupling will happen, and the customers will actually gain out of it. So it'll actually create a cleaner environment for the customers to be.
Got it. I'm going to take your point. I'm going to take your point on decoupling and ask you the next question, because you raised an important point where you say that, and I think even from Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman's comment, it's quite clear that she wants the focus to go back to what has been banks' most rudimentary value and purpose, right? Banks were brought into the society to lend money to people. FM Sitharaman also said that banks should prioritize collecting low-cost CASA deposits instead of rushing into aggressive lending and cross-selling. As a regular saver with a salary account, how might this shift help me get better interest rates on savings or fairer loan terms in the long run? Or does it change anything at all in this arena?
See, in fact, as and when the banks have started defocusing on CASA and they were more focusing on easier income, which was more in terms of getting the fee income out by selling the third-party products. So the whole idea is that banks should go back. In fact, the CASA growth rate was much lower than the credit growth rate. So which again was a challenge which RBI has fought after. And over a period of time, as the CASA starts getting progress, you will have better bargain in terms of A, you get a better interest, and B, obviously overall the cost of borrowing should also come down. So effectively, in fact, as a customer, so it leaves the customer as a better customer, and the whole ecosystem also becomes far more cleaner. I think that's the piece which the RBI and the FM is trying to put across.
Right. So, Mr. Agarwal, if banks face stricter consequences for mis-selling, like full refunds and compensation as per RBI drafts, will this reduce the hidden costs or higher interest rates I've sometimes faced because of unwanted add-on products? And how soon might this benefit everyday borrowers and depositors?
So, I think RBI is planning for a white paper till 4th of March, and 1st July is going to implement the whole piece. The whole thing, what will also happen is with this coming in, this will be faster to implement because there are criminal provisions which have been put across, and the message is very top down, very clear in terms of what is to be done. Obviously, banks has to get into more ethical selling. I think nobody is trying to stop selling of these products, but more in an ethical manner, which effectively takes care of the customer and the bank both. I think combining these two, this should happen easily. There will be some interim short-term losses for the bank in terms of coming in, but over a period of time, given the size and given overall profitability of the bank, should not be a problem. And I think we should be able to absorb it. And it should be next 3 to 6 months itself. We should be able to get in quickly this kind of tweaks in the system.
So, Mr. Agarwal, just to make it clear then, of course, it's a good news for customers because then they would not get wrapped or, manipulated by mis-selling, for the lack of a better word. But you don't see any financial implication on the bank's bottom line due to this action?
So, frankly, there might be a short-term blip in terms of maybe a quarter kind of a thing at max. But eventually, given the size, and in fact, it's not that RBI has banned selling. There's more in terms of that you get into more ethical selling. In fact, SBI heads have already given a feedback that they were quite positive, in fact, with the news, and they'll be pretty good in terms of because they are more into ethical selling. So I think it will be more a matter of time. It's a way of selling which will change, not the numbers. Maybe a very short term time it can get impacted, but in the medium term, obviously things will be back, and in fact, with the proper thing, and when the customer actually have a trust in the system, in fact, the loan growth will be far better. So effectively, I don't see much of banks' earnings getting impacted over a period of time.
Okay, so lovely. Good news for us and good news for banks as well. And as you said, it's a good thing that banks have been welcoming this move. Thank you so much, Mr. Agarwal, for joining us in this very important conversation.
Thank you.
And viewers, moving on, the SEBI